German pilots called the P-38 fork-tailed devil, and they were right. It began with disbelief. Luftwaffe pilots returning from their first encounters over Tunisia in early 1943 swore they'd seen something impossible. An American fighter with two fuselages, twin engines, and a single pilot seated between them like a gunslinger in a mechanical beast. Some thought it a new bomber escort prototype. Others called it a trick of the sun, but after the wreckage of one such aircraft was found smoldering in the desert, its tail booms torn apart by 20mm shells, German intelligence finally issued a name that would echo in radio chatter and pilot diaries for the next 2 years. Der Gabelschwanz-Teufel, the fork-tailed devil. What the Germans feared most wasn't its silhouette. It was the brutal precision behind it, a machine that could outclimb, outdive, and outgun nearly everything they had. The P-38 Lightning did not emerge overnight. It began as Lockheed's response to a 1937 U.S. Army Air Corps request for an interceptor, capable of reaching 360 and climbing to 20,000 feet in under 6 minutes. Near impossible demand in the piston engine era. Chief Engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson's design defied convention. Twin Allison V-1710 liquid-cooled engines mounted on twin booms, counter-rotating propellers to eliminate torque, and a central nacelle for the pilot and armament. The configuration looked alien beside the smooth single-engine fighters of the time, but its logic was ruthless. With 475 horsepower per engine and turbo superchargers allowing sustained power at 30,000 feet, the Lightning could climb faster than any U.S. aircraft then in existence. Production at Lockheed's Burbank plant began in mid-1941. Each airframe required more than 20,000 man-hours to build, twice that of a P-40, and consumed 2.5 tons of duralumin, a scarce alloy competing with B-17 assembly lines. Yet the Army accepted the cost because the Lightning promised something no other aircraft could deliver: range. Fully fueled, its twin 300-gallon drop tanks pushed its combat radius to nearly 1,000 miles, more than triple that of early Spitfires. When the first operational P-38s of the 1st Fighter Group arrived in England in 1942, British pilots mocked its size, calling it a flying barn door. But in the Pacific, where distances dwarfed European battlefields, the Lightning proved indispensable. It could escort bombers from New Guinea to Rabaul, strike ships off Truk Lagoon, then return with fuel to spare. By mid-1943, Lightning squadrons averaged 75% mission readiness, astonishing for a twin engine. Fighter operating in tropical humidity that devoured machinery. The Germans first met the P-38 over Tunisia. On April 5, 1943, Hauptmann Ernst Wilhelm Reinert of JG-77 recorded the twin-boom American. It climbs past my nose like a rocket. Cannon ineffective beyond 200 meters. Luftwaffe Combat Report, April 1943. Within days, the 82nd Fighter Group's P-38s had downed 31 enemy aircraft for the loss of 6. Its concentrated nose armament, one 20mm Hispano cannon and 4 50-caliber Browning machine guns firing along the same axis, meant no bullet convergence adjustments were needed. At 300 yards, it delivered 800 rounds per minute into a target the size of a Messerschmitt cockpit. Yet the Lightning was far from flawless. Pilots complained of cockpit heat reaching 120° off during long flights, and compressibility issues in high-speed dives often locked the controls, a problem that killed more men than enemy fire. Lockheed engineers traced the cause to shock waves forming along the wing roots at speeds over 420 millimeters. In late 1943, they installed dive recovery flaps, a small mechanical fix that transformed the aircraft's behavior. Test pilot Tony Levere later said, "It went from a killer to a thoroughbred overnight." Lockheed Flight Journal, Dec, 1943. By the time of the Italian campaign, the P-38's reputation had reached mythic proportions. Luftwaffe field reports described two-tailed fighters attacking from the sun, diving at 500 millimeters, impossible to shake. OKL Operation Summary, Sept, 1943. The Germans adjusted tactics, ordering pilots to avoid head-on confrontations. But its speed and climb advantage, 3,800 feet per minute, made evasion nearly futile. When operating in pairs, Lightnings used boom and zoom attacks that shredded Bf-109 formations before they could react. In the Pacific, it achieved an almost supernatural status. On April 18, 1943, 16 P-38Gs of the 339th Fighter Squadron executed Operation Vengeance, the intercept of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto's aircraft over Bougainville. The mission required flying 435 miles at treetop height, guided only by dead reckoning and a secret radio fix. They arrived within 1 minute of Yamamoto's schedule. Major Tom Lanfear's burst tore through the G-4M Betty bomber's right engine, sending the architect of Pearl Harbor to his death. The precision of the mission stunned both American commanders and Japanese intelligence officers, who never learned how their codes had been broken. Each success carried a price. Maintenance was punishing. Each Allison engine required overhaul every 180 flight hours, and the turbo superchargers consumed a third of the Pacific Theater's high-temperature alloys. Replacement parts had to be shipped 7,000 miles from California. Mechanics often worked under rain-soaked tarps with only one functional generator. Yet sortie rates remained high because ground crews adapted with ingenuity, scavenging spark plugs from wrecked aircraft, forging coolant lines from shell casings. By mid-1944, the P-38 had matured into its definitive J&L variants. Weight climbed to 1,700 pounds loaded, but speed touched 440 mph at 25,000 feet. Its internal fuel capacity of 410 gallons allowed 10-hour reconnaissance flights over enemy territory. Cameras replaced guns in F-5 versions that photographed every major invasion. Beachhead from Normandy to Luzon. Intelligence. Officers later credited these images with shortening the European war by months. Still, the Lightning faced growing obsolescence as single-engine designs like the P-51D Mustang gained similar range with higher speeds. Mustang production, at $50,000 per unit, undercut the P-38's $97,000 price tag. By late 1944, Europe-based groups transitioned to P-51s. But in the Pacific, the Lightning continued to dominate where endurance mattered more than elegance. Colonel Charles Lindbergh, serving as a civilian advisor, flew several combat sorties in 1944 and noted, at 1,600 RPM, 28 inches of manifold pressure, the range exceeds 2,200 miles, astounding for a fighter. Flight log. July 1944. German pilots, meanwhile, never learned to love the sight of the twin tail. Over Normandy, radar operators reported echoes of forked shadows diving from 30,000 feet. Flak batteries wasted precious 88mm rounds chasing them through the clouds. The psychological weight was real. POW interrogations from Jagdgeschwader 26 revealed that 63% of captured pilots considered the P-38 the most dangerous Allied aircraft, even more than the Mustang. On the ground, Lockheed's production lines reflected the vast industrial machine behind the war. By August 1945, 9,123 Lightnings had rolled out of Burbank, enough aluminum to build an entire battleship. Each month consumed 300,000 gallons of hydraulic fluid, 12 million rivets, and the labor of 60,000 workers, half of them women. The rhythm of the assembly line mirrored the pulse of total war. Precision, repetition, perfection. When the guns finally fell silent, the P-38 had flown in every theater, claimed 1,800 enemy aircraft, and logged more combat hours than any other U.S. twin-engine fighter. Yet its legacy was not defined by numbers alone. It symbolized a moment when American engineering outpaced fear, when the limits of metal, fuel, and physics bent under human will. In the post-war years, jet engines rendered it obsolete almost overnight. Many were scrapped, others sold for pennies. But veterans remembered its voice, the deep asynchronous hum of twin Allisons sinking perfectly at altitude. It was the sound of dominance forged in aluminum and courage. The Germans had been right. The P-38 was a devil, not of superstition, but of design. A machine so unconventional that it embodied the very essence of modern war. Fear translated into innovation, and innovation into survival. The fork-tailed devil didn't just haunt enemy skies. It proved that in the brutal logic of 20th century warfare, imagination itself was the deadliest weapon.